At the solemn funeral of a revered general, where dignitaries and soldiers gathered to honor a hero, security guards blocked an elderly man in tattered clothes, dismissing him as a vagrant unworthy of entry. But when a four-star general halted the entire ceremony, revealing the old man's true identity, the crowd was left in awe, learning a lesson in humility that would echo through military history. On a somber morning in Arlington, Virginia, in September 2024, the funeral of General Raymond T. Caldwell, a decorated Vietnam War hero and former Army Chief of Staff, drew a crowd of military brass, politicians, and grieving family to Arlington National Cemetery. The air was thick with the weight of loss, as Caldwell's 40-year career had shaped modern military strategy and earned him the respect of generations. Among the attendees was an elderly man, Samuel Jenkins, who approached the cemetery gates, his faded jacket patched to the elbows and his shoes worn thin from years of walking. His face, lined with age, carried a quiet determination as he clutched a small, folded flag in his trembling hands. Samuel, 78, had driven 300 miles from his modest home in rural West Virginia to pay his respects. He moved slowly, his gait uneven from an old war injury, but his eyes held the sharpness of a man who'd seen history unfold. At the security checkpoint, two young guards, Private First Class Ryan Miller and Specialist Elena Torres, eyed him skeptically. Miller, new to the Army and eager to prove his vigilance, stepped forward. "Sir, this is a private ceremony. Invitation only. Can you show me your credentials?" he asked, his tone clipped. Samuel fumbled in his pocket, producing a crumpled letter with the cemetery's letterhead. An invitation sent to all living members of General Caldwell's old unit. "I served with Ray, General Caldwell, in '68, Samuel said softly, his voice rough but steady. "This is my invite." Torres glanced at the letter, then at Samuel's disheveled appearance. "Sir, this looks old. You sure it's legit? We can't let just anyone in. Security's tight today." Her words were professional but carried an edge of doubt. Samuel nodded, undeterred. "I understand, ma'am, but I was in Bravo Company, 101st Airborne, with Ray. I just want to say goodbye." Miller exchanged a look with Torres, unconvinced. The crowd behind them included senators in tailored suits, generals in crisp dress blues, and a former Secretary of Defense. Samuel, with his threadbare clothes and no visible rank, didn't fit the picture. "Wait here," Miller said, stepping away to radio his supervisor. "We'll check your story." As Samuel stood by the gate, a few onlookers whispered, assuming he was a homeless veteran or a confused local. A reporter from a military news outlet, covering the funeral, snapped a photo, captioning it on Twitter. "Old man stopped at General Caldwell's funeral. Claims he's a vet. Security is not buying it. Hashtag Arlington Funeral." The tweet gained traction, with comments ranging from "let him in" to "probably a scam artist." Inside the cemetery, the ceremony was about to begin. A military band played a mournful tune, and a horse-drawn caisson carried General Caldwell's flag-draped casket. General Thomas Bradley, a four-star general and Caldwell's longtime friend, stood near the family, preparing to deliver the eulogy. Bradley, 65, was a towering figure in the Army, known for his leadership in Desert Storm and his mentorship of younger officers. As he reviewed his notes, a junior officer approached, whispering about a disturbance at the gate. "Some old guy's causing a fuss, sir. Says he knew General Caldwell. Security's holding him." Bradley's brow furrowed. "What's his name?" he asked. The officer checked his radio. "Samuel Jenkins. Claims he was 101st Airborne." Bradley's eyes widened, and he set his notes down. "Hold the ceremony," he said, his voice firm. "I need to see this man myself." The officer hesitated, surprised, but relayed the order. The band stopped mid-note, and the crowd murmured in confusion as Bradley strode toward the gate, his medals glinting under the morning sun. At the checkpoint, Samuel waited patiently, ignoring the curious stares. Miller returned, shaking his head. "Sir, we can't verify your invitation. You'll have to leave." Samuel's shoulders sagged slightly, but he nodded. "I don't want trouble. I'll go." Before he could turn away, Bradley's voice boomed across the gate. "Stand down, Private." The guard snapped to attention as Bradley approached, his presence commanding silence. Bradley looked at Samuel, his stern expression softening. "Sam? Sam Jenkins? Is that you?" Samuel's eyes lit up, recognition dawning. "Tom Bradley? Lord, it's been years." The two men clasped hands, Bradley pulling Samuel into a brief but heartfelt embrace. The guards froze, and the crowd nearby fell silent, sensing something extraordinary. The reporter, still tweeting, posted, "Four-star General Bradley just stopped the funeral for this old man. What's happening? Hashtag Arlington shock." Bradley turned to the guards, his voice low but authoritative. "This man is Staff Sergeant Samuel Jenkins, Bronze Star recipient, one of the bravest soldiers I ever served with. He saved General Caldwell's life in Vietnam and mine too. You will let him in and he'll sit with me." Miller and Torres stammered apologies, their faces flushed. "Yes, sir. Sorry, sir," Torres said, stepping aside. Samuel, embarrassed by the attention, muttered, "No fuss, Tom. I just wanted to be here for Ray." Bradley wouldn't hear it. He escorted Samuel through the gate, guiding him to the front row, where Caldwell's widow, Margaret, sat. Bradley whispered to her, and her eyes filled with tears. "You're Sam?" she said, taking his hand. "Ray talked about you all the time. Thank you for coming." Samuel nodded, his throat tight. "He was a good man, ma'am. The best." The ceremony resumed, but Bradley altered his eulogy on the spot. Addressing crowd, he began, "Today, we honor General Raymond Caldwell, a leader, a patriot, and a friend. But we also honor the unsung heroes who made his legacy possible, like Staff Sergeant Samuel Jenkins, who stands among us." He gestured to Samuel, who shifted uncomfortably as eyes turned to him. In 1968, during a firefight in Key San, Sam carried Ray to safety under heavy enemy fire, taking shrapnel to his leg. He never sought glory, never wore his medals, but he's the reason Ray survived to lead us. The crowd listened in rapt silence, some wiping tears. Margaret reached for Samuel's hand again, squeezing it tightly. The reporter's tweets went viral, with thousands sharing the story. "Old man turned away at funeral was a war hero. General Bradley stops everything to honor him. Hashtag American hero." Veterans groups amplified the post, and comments poured in, "This is why we respect our vets. Shame on those guards." Samuel, overwhelmed, kept his gaze on the casket. He hadn't spoken of Vietnam in decades, the memories too heavy. Born in a small West Virginia town, he'd enlisted at 19, driven by a sense of duty and a need to escape poverty. In Bravo Company, he bonded with Caldwell, then a young lieutenant, over shared meals of sea rations and dreams of home. During the Key San ambush, Samuel had acted on instinct, dragging Caldwell through mud and bullets, ignoring the pain in his leg. The Bronze Star came later, tucked away in a drawer, as Samuel returned to a quiet life as a mechanic, raising 3 kids with his late wife, Clara. The guard's rejection stung, but it wasn't new. Samuel had faced suspicion before, at VA clinics, in stores, even in his hometown, where his humble clothes marked him as lesser to some. Yet he carried no bitterness, only the stoicism of a soldier who'd seen worse. Bradley's intervention, though, was unexpected. The two had last met in 1975, when Bradley, then a captain, visited Samuel in the hospital after his injury flared up. "Your family, Sam," Bradley had said then, a promise kept decades later. As the funeral ended, mourners approached Samuel, offering handshakes and gratitude. A senator promised to nominate him for a Veterans Recognition Award, and Margaret invited him to a private family gathering. Samuel declined politely, saying, "I just wanted to say goodbye to Ray. That's enough." But Bradley insisted on driving him to a nearby hotel, where he'd arranged a room. Over coffee, Bradley shared stories of Caldwell's later years, how he'd often mentioned Sam, the guy who saved me. Samuel listened, his eyes misty, and said, "Ray saved me too, just by believing in me." The story spread beyond Arlington. News outlets ran features titled, "War Hero Denied Entry, Honored by 4-Star General." A viral video of Bradley's eulogy, captured by the reporter, amassed millions of views, with comments like, "This is what leadership looks like," and "Samuel Jenkins deserves a medal for humility." Veterans organizations launched a campaign to honor unsung heroes, using Samuel's story as a centerpiece. Miller and Torres, chastened by the incident, sought Samuel out after the funeral. "We were wrong, sir," Miller said, his voice breaking. "We judge you by your clothes, not your service." Samuel shook their hands. "You're young. You'll learn. Just remember, every vet's got a story." The guards took his words to heart, later volunteering at a VA hospital to better understand the veterans they served.